Your neighbors are going to walk past your yard in August and stop in the middle of the sidewalk. Not because you spent more money than them, not because you worked harder than them, but because you made one decision in May that they didn't. 11 perennials, 1 month, a landscape so full, so layered, so alive with color and motion and pollinators that the whole street notices. These plants spread on their own. They come back every single year. They multiply into free plants while you are doing absolutely nothing. And if you miss this May window, you lose the entire growing season. So let's not waste another second. Here is exactly what to plant right now. Plant 1, Purple Coneflower. Most American gardeners have seen this plant 1,000 times and never planted it once. That is the single most common gardening mistake in this entire country. Picture a 4-foot stand of glowing purple-pink, daisy-shaped flowers with raised bronze-copper centers, swaying lightly in a summer breeze, with a goldfinch hanging upside down on one of the stems pulling seeds out of the cone. That scene is happening in someone's yard right now. It can be happening in yours by mid-July. Echinacea purpurea is hardy in USDA zones 3 through 9. That is virtually every gardening region in the continental United States. It blooms from June straight through September on stiff, upright stems that never need staking, never flop, and never demand anything from you beyond a sunny spot and decent drainage. Here is what most gardening videos completely fail to mention about coneflower. Every single flower head produces hundreds of viable seeds. By year 2, your one plant has quietly produced 6. By year 4, you have a colony. The USDA actively recommends echinacea in their pollinator habitat programs because a mature stand supports over 40 species of native bees and butterflies, plus seed-eating songbirds in late fall and winter. You are not just planting a flower, you are planting a multi-season wildlife station, planted in full sun, in well-drained soil, 12 to 18 inches apart. Do not cut down the seed heads in fall. Leave them standing. They feed the birds through January, and they reseed your bed for free. Tell me in the comments right now, do you have a spot in your yard that gets full sun and nothing seems to stay long-term? Because I promise you, almost every answer to that problem is sitting on this list today. Drop it below. I read every single one. Plant 2, Yarrow. This plant grows wild on Alaska tundra. It grows wild in the Arizona desert. It grows in the cracked clay of Texas drought, the rocky shale of Appalachia, and the salt-sprayed dunes of Cape Cod. If that one fact does not tell you everything you need to know about how absolutely unstoppable this plant is, nothing will. Achillea millefolium is hardy in USDA zones 3 through 9. Flat, broad, plate-shaped flower clusters in white, soft yellow, vivid gold, deep pink, burnt orange, and rich red, sitting on top of fern-like silver-green foliage that smells faintly herbal when you brush against it. The flowers bloom for 10 to 12 weeks straight from late spring through midsummer, and the cut flowers dry perfectly for arrangements that hold their color for over a year. Here is the counterintuitive truth that almost nobody will tell you about yarrow. The poorer your soil, the better it performs. Rich, fertile, freshly amended soil makes yarrow grow floppy, weak, and disease-prone. Lean, rocky, neglected dirt makes it bulletproof. Highway departments across the western United States planted in roadside medians for exactly this reason. Places where nothing else will live. Places that nobody waters. Places that endure salt spray and exhaust fumes and zero maintenance. That is the kind of plant you are putting in your yard. It spreads steadily through underground rhizomes, filling space tightly enough that weeds cannot establish underneath it. Divide every 3 to 4 years in early spring. One mature clump easily yields 6 to 10 free divisions in 20 minutes with a garden fork. At $10 per plant at the nursery, that is $60 to $100 of free perennials from one morning's work. That is not gardening. That is compounding. Every plant you are about to see is linked in the description below. Grab the seeds now while May is still open, because by the time this video ends, you are going to want at least 3 of them in the ground this week. Plant 3, Salvia. If you have never had a hummingbird hover 6 feet from your face while you are drinking your coffee on a May morning, this is the plant that makes that happen. And once it happens once, you will never plant another garden without salvia in it again. Salvia May Night is hardy in USDA zones 3 through 8 and was named Perennial Plant of the Year in 1997, which is the gardening world's equivalent of a Best Picture award. Deep violet-purple flower spikes, 18 to 24 inches tall, stand straight up in dense vertical columns covered in tiny tubular florets from late May through July. May, that is the bloom window. Plant it in May, and it is flowering for you within weeks. There are very few perennials on Earth that pay you back that fast. The tubular flower shape is biologically engineered for hummingbird feeding. Their beaks fit perfectly. Once one hummingbird finds your salvia, it claims the territory and visits the same flowers every single day for months. Bumblebees work it relentlessly. Hair-streaked butterflies feed on it constantly. Here is the insider move that doubles your bloom season. The moment the first flush of flowers fades, in late June or early July, cut every stem back by 1/3 with sharp pruners. Within 3 weeks, the plant produces a complete second wave of bloom that carries you straight through August. 2 full bloom cycles in one season from a plant deer will not touch because the aromatic oils in the foliage repel them at the approach stage before they ever take a bite. Plant it in full sun, in average soil, 12 to 18 inches apart. Do not overwater it. Do not over-fertilize it. The less you do, the better it performs. Salvia rewards neglect more than almost any other perennial you can buy in this country. Plant 4, Hostas. Most people see hostas and assume slow, sleepy, suburban shade filler. Most people have absolutely no idea what is actually happening underneath the soil of a mature hosta clump. Hosta cultivars range across USDA zones 3 through 9, with over 3,000 registered name varieties offering leaves in chartreuse gold, deep forest green, blue-gray powder, creamy variegated white, and combinations of all of them. Leaves can be the size of a teaspoon or the size of a dinner plate. A single mature clump of a large variety like Sum and Substance can reach 6 feet across with leaves nearly 2 feet long. That is a tropical-looking specimen in your shade garden for the cost of one perennial. Here is the math that will change how you think about every shade plant you have ever bought. A mature hosta clump, 3 to 4 years old, divides into 10 to 15 complete viable plants. Each one is identical in genetics to the parent. Each one will be a full-size clump within 3 more seasons. At nursery prices of $20 to $40 per hosta, depending on variety, one original plant produces between $200 and $600 worth of free hostas. The American Hosta Society has documented division yields even higher than that on established specimens of certain large cultivars. You are not buying a plant. You are buying a permanent self-replicating asset. Plant them in part shade to full shade, in moisture-retentive soil amended with compost, 18 to 36 inches apart depending on mature size. One critical warning: slugs love hostas. In wet seasons or shade-heavy yards, scatter iron phosphate-based slug bait around the base in spring. That single step protects every leaf for the entire season. Plant 5, Coreopsis. There is a quiet category of perennials in American gardening that experienced gardeners absolutely depend on and beginners have somehow never heard of. And threadleaf Coreopsis sits right at the top of that list. Coreopsis verticillata, Moonbeam, is hardy in USDA zones 3 through 9 and was named Perennial Plant of the Year in 1992. Delicate ferny, needle-fine foliage forms a soft 18-inch mound, smothered in pale, buttery, lemon-yellow daisy flowers from June, continuously through October. That is a 5-month bloom window from a single plant with absolutely no deadheading required. Most flowering perennials give you 3 to 5 weeks of bloom and disappear. Coreopsis gives you 5 months, Almost nothing else in the catalog matches that productivity ratio. The pale yellow color is engineered to pair with virtually every other color in your border. It softens hot reds and oranges, it brightens deep purples and blues, it cools down brash pinks. Professional landscape designers use it as a connecting color, a unifying thread that visually links plant groupings that would otherwise look unrelated and chaotic. It spreads steadily through underground rhizomes, doubling its footprint roughly every 2 seasons without ever becoming invasive. Drought-tolerant, deer-resistant, heat-resistant, salt-tolerant. There is almost no environmental stress that significantly slows it down. Plant in full sun, in average to lean, well-drained soil. In late June, shear the entire plant back by 1/3 to encourage a fuller, denser second flush. Divide every 3 to 4 years in early spring to maintain peak vigor and to produce more free plants that you can spread across other areas of your yard or hand to a neighbor who has been admiring yours all summer. Plant 6, Russian Sage. If deer have eaten everything you have ever tried to plant within reach of your property line, and if you are officially done buying expensive plants only to find them mowed down by morning, Russian sage is the conversation you needed to have before you spent another $1 at the garden center. Perovskia atroplicifolia is hardy in USDA zones 4 through 9 and was named Perennial Plant of the Year in 1995. Airy clouds of small lavender-blue tubular flowers on silvery white aromatic stems that reach 3 to 4 feet tall and 3 feet wide. From a distance, a mature stand of Russian sage looks like a soft purple haze hovering above your border. It blooms from July straight through September, exactly when most spring perennials have already finished, and your garden desperately needs something to carry the show forward into late summer. Here's the truth that solves 3 separate problems with one plant. First, the strong aromatic oils in the foliage repel deer at the approach stage. They smell it before they get close enough to eat it, and they redirect to your neighbor's yard. Second, those same oils make Russian sage one of the most pollinator-attractive perennials available to American gardeners. Honeybees, bumblebees, hummingbird moths, swallowtail butterflies, and native solitary bees all work it constantly throughout the bloom window. Third, Russian sage is rated for highly polluted urban environments. It tolerates road salt, exhaust fumes, parking lot heat, reflected light from concrete, and the kind of dry, compacted urban soil that kills almost everything else. Cities plant it in median strips and along sidewalks for exactly that reason. If those conditions don't kill it, nothing happening in your yard is going to. In early spring, cut last year's stems back to within 6 inches of the ground. That single annual cut is the entire maintenance plan. Plant in full sun in lean, well-drained soil 3 feet apart. Do not fertilize. Do not coddle it. Russian sage performs worst when treated best. Plant 7, Sedum Autumn Joy. There is one plant on this list that you can literally break a piece off, push it into the dirt, and walk away, and 3 months later, it is a full plant rooted and growing on its own. That is not an exaggeration. That is how this plant propagates. Sedum Autumn Joy, recently reclassified as Hylotelephium herbstfreude, is hardy in USDA zones 3 through 10. That is almost the entire continental United States and most of the gardening world beyond it. Thick, succulent gray-green leaves form an 18-inch mound through spring and summer. In late August, dense flower heads emerge with pale pink florets that gradually deepen through salmon, rose, copper bronze, and finally a rich rust red that holds straight through the first frosts of November. One plant gives you 4 distinct color phases through the back half of the season. Almost nothing else in American gardening matches that range from a single specimen. Sedum is used in green roof installations across the country, including major commercial buildings in New York, Chicago, and San Francisco, because it survives extreme drought, intense heat reflection, shallow rocky soil, and 0 supplemental irrigation. Landscape engineers chose it for those projects because it is, biologically, one of the toughest decorative plants available to American gardeners. If it thrives on a Manhattan rooftop with 2 inches of soil, it is going to thrive in your front yard. The flat, broad, late summer flower heads are a critical fueling stop for monarch butterflies, painted ladies, and migrating skippers heading south. The seed heads, if you leave them standing through winter, hold beautifully against snow and feed finches and juncos through January. Plant in full sun, in average to lean, well-drained soil, 18 inches apart. Every 3 to 4 years, dig the clump in early spring and split it into 4 to 6 new plants. That single morning of work, repeated once a few years apart, eventually populates an entire section of your yard with sedum for free. Plant 8, Hardy Hibiscus. In May, when you put this plant in the ground, you will look at it and you will be absolutely convinced it is dead. Brown sticks, no leaves, no visible signs of life. You will second-guess yourself, you will wonder if you bought a dead plant, and you will be completely wrong. Hibiscus mosquitos is hardy in USDA zones 4 through 9, and it is one of the latest plants in the catalog to break dormancy in spring. By the time everything else in your yard is already leafed out, hardy hibiscus is still asleep underground, and then, sometime in late May or early June, depending on your zone, it explodes. 6 feet tall in 8 weeks. Dinner plate flowers 10 to 12 inches across, in deep red, bright pink, pure white, and bicolor combinations that look like they belong in the tropics. People genuinely do not believe these flowers are real when they see them for the first time. They look painted on. They look airbrushed. They look like something that should not be growing in a Cleveland front yard in August, but it is, and it can be growing in yours. Here is what most American gardeners do not realize about hardy hibiscus. It is a North American native, derived from rose mallows that grow wild in marshy areas across the eastern United States. It is not an exotic tropical at all. The tropical-looking flowers are simply what this native plant naturally produces. Trial gardens at universities, including the University of Georgia and the Chicago Botanic Garden, have documented bloom counts of over 100 flowers per established plant per season on top-performing cultivars. Each individual flower lasts only 1 day, but a mature plant produces a new round of blooms every single morning for 6 to 8 straight weeks. Plant in full sun, in moisture-retentive soil amended with compost, 3 feet apart because mature plants get massive. Water deeply during the establishment year. After that, it largely takes care of itself. In late fall, cut the dead stems down to 6 inches and mulch heavily over the crown. It will be back next May on its own schedule, just like before. Plant 9, Liriope. Almost every American gardener has walked past Liriope in commercial landscaping 1,000 times and dismissed it as boring institutional filler. They are completely wrong. And that one widespread dismissal has kept one of the most useful, most versatile, most low-maintenance spreading perennials in North American horticulture out of home gardens for an entire generation. Today, that changes. Liriope muscari Big Blue is hardy in USDA zones 5 through 10. Strap-like arching grass-green foliage forms tight evergreen clumps 12 to 18 inches tall that stay green through every single month of the year, including January, including February, even under snow. In late summer, dense violet-purple flower spikes rise above the foliage and look genuinely like miniature grape hyacinths blooming from the middle of a fountain of leaves. Most gardeners have never even noticed the flowers because they have never looked closely at what they assumed was filler. Here is what changes everything. Liriope handles full sun, deep shade, dry conditions, wet conditions, sandy soil, clay soil, foot traffic, root competition from large trees, and total neglect, all equally well. It is one of the very few plants on Earth that genuinely does not care what conditions you put it in. It will perform. Universities across the southeastern United States, including LSU and the University of Georgia, recommend Liriope as a no-mow lawn alternative for shaded areas under trees where turf grass refuses to establish and refuses to compete with surface roots. That dark patchy bare zone under your big maple or oak, the one where you have replanted grass seed 5 times and given up, is solved permanently by one May planting of Liriope spaced 10 inches apart. Within 2 seasons, it closes the gap, suppresses weeds, holds soil against erosion, and gives you a lush green carpet that never needs mowing. In early spring, before new growth emerges, mow the entire planting on the highest mower setting to remove last year's tired foliage. That single annual pass is the complete maintenance schedule. Divide every 4 years to keep clumps vigorous and to generate dozens of free transplants for the rest of your yard. Plant 10, feather reed grass. There's a particular sound that ornamental grasses make in an October wind that no other plant in the American garden can produce. Soft, dry, papery, almost like brush silk moving against itself. Once you have heard it from your own yard, on your own evening, standing on your own back step, you will never plant another fall garden without ornamental grass in it again. Calamagrostis, equitiflora, Carl Forster is hardy in USDA zones 4 through 9, and in 2001 became the first ornamental grass ever named Perennial Plant of the Year. That award is not handed out casually. It went to this grass because it is, by professional consensus, one of the most reliable, most architectural, most universally adaptable plants available to American gardeners across nearly every region of the country. Slim, upright clumps reach 4 to 5 feet tall by midsummer. In June, feathery flower plumes emerge in pale green, then mature through gold, then bronze, then a soft buff tan that holds straight through the entire winter, standing fully upright against snow, ice, and high wind. Most ornamental grasses flop, split open in the center, or collapse under the first heavy snow. Carl Forster stays vertical. It stays elegant. It stays architectural through every single month of the year. That is genuinely rare. It is also sterile, which means it does not self-seed aggressively into your other beds or into wild areas the way some ornamental grasses do. You get all of the structure, all of the beauty, all of the movement, with none of the invasive risk. The vertical form creates visual contrast against rounded, mounding perennials. Designers use it as a natural exclamation point in a border, as a soft living screen along a property line, or as a backdrop that makes shorter blooming plants in front of it look more vivid by comparison. Plant in full sun to part sun, in average soil, 18 to 24 inches apart. In late February or early March, before new growth emerges, cut the entire clump down to 4 inches from the ground with head shears. That one cut is the only annual maintenance. Divide every 4 to 5 years in early spring to keep the center vigorous and to multiply your investment. Plant 11, Black-Eyed Susan. Every plant on this list earns its place from May through October. This one earns its place in February, when the snow is on the ground and every other perennial in your yard is buried, gone, invisible. This plant is still standing. Stiff, dark stems, dark chocolate brown seed cones held up 4 feet above the snow line, completely covered in goldfinches and chickadees feeding on the seeds because there is almost nothing else available to them in midwinter. That scene is the payoff for everything you plant this May. Rudbeckia fulgida goldsturm is hardy in USDA zones 3 through 9 and was named Perennial Plant of the Year in 1999. Vivid golden yellow daisy flowers with deep chocolate black centers bloom from mid-July straight through October on stiff upright stems that never need staking. The color is so saturated, so pure, so intense in afternoon sunlight that the plants almost appear lit from within. A mass planting of Black-Eyed Susan in August stops every single person who walks past your yard. It is not subtle. It is not refined. It is a celebration. The University of Vermont and multiple regional native plant societies document Rudbeckia as one of the highest value perennials in North America for late-season pollinator support. Feeding monarch butterflies during their southern migration, native bumblebees building winter colonies, and dozens of skippers and small butterflies that depend on accessible nectar in August and September. And after the flowers fade, when most American gardeners are out there cutting everything down in October because it looks finished, here is what you do instead. You leave them. Every stem, every cone, every seed. Through November, those seed heads feed goldfinches. Through December, they feed chickadees. Through January, they feed juncos. Through February, when the world outside your window is gray and frozen and empty, your yard is full of small, bright yellow finches working the cones one seed at a time. And when you are standing inside with your coffee on a cold morning, watching that activity happen in the middle of winter, in the snow, in your own yard because of one decision you made in May, that is the moment this entire list pays off. Every plant you put in the ground this month, every decision you made, that quiet February moment is what you planted for. You just spent time learning 11 plants that will change what your yard looks and feels like by August. And keep changing it, keep improving it, keep multiplying it for years from now without you having to start over every spring. That is not a gardening video. That is a plan, a real, specific, actionable plan for a yard that takes care of itself and rewards you more every single season. If this gave you even one plant you are going to put in the ground this May, subscribe right now because next week we go just as deep. And the week after that, every single week this channel releases content at this level. Real plant knowledge, real zone-specific guidance, real information that saves you money and transforms how your outdoor space actually performs. You do not want to be the person who finds this channel 6 months from now and wishes they had subscribed today. The gardeners who subscribed at the beginning of this video are already ahead. Join them right now. Hit subscribe, hit the bell, and before you go, drop one comment below. Tell me which plant from this list is going in the ground first this May, and tell me what state or zone you are gardening in. I read every single comment. I respond to as many as I can. And your answers directly shape the videos I make next. This is your yard, this is your year. May is open right now.